Oh, big strong one.
Big strong one like this. Go, right, 3, 2.
Yay!
You do it. Go. Go there.
Yay!
This is Tweet Street, satirical saltire, broadcasting to you from occupied Scotland.
Welcome along to Tweet Street, Occupied Scotland, or Tweet Street Scotland Occupied people. Thanks very much for joining us. With us today, we have none other than John Wight, the viral commenter. I can't do justice to the man because everything that he says was probably everything he's feeling at that moment. I'm just going to introduce him by saying, John, welcome along to Tweet Street. Thanks very much for taking part.
Thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here.
How have you been since the Boris Johnson video?
Well, I've kind of calmed down now. The heart rate's gone back down to normal. It was fucking shooting up to the moon during that video. I've been gratified with a lot of the response, obviously. I didn't expect that at all. I think maybe I caught a mood in the country. I think when Johnson came up, it was a provocation. First of all, breaking any COVID regulations. And secondly, it really did feel for the first time a UK Prime Minister was actually the Prime Minister of England only. And he came as the leader of a foreign nation. I really did get that feeling. And I think that's a feeling that's shared right across this country now in the midst of COVID, where we've actually been governing ourselves. And that's been a big mistake of this kind of out of touch, hubristic Tory establishment, because they don't recognise Scotland as a constituent part of the UK, a constituent nation or a partner nation. They see us as a province of Britain. And Boris Johnson said it himself, didn't he? He said the devolution's been a disaster in Scotland. Yeah. What he means by that is it's set in train the consciousness through which everything is viewed in Scotland through a national prism, national consciousness that was raised in 2014 in the run-up to the first referendum. So I think COVID is accelerating all the contradictions of this union. I've said before, this is a prolonged experiment in semi-feudalism at home and colonialism abroad, and it must be broken up on that basis.
I mean, again, it's like, if I was to write down words myself, they're the words that I'd be saying. It's one, and I think that is the feeling that's common among a lot of people in Scotland. Again, if you have a look at how Brexit went with the UK government and their dealings with that, I mean, it's not just Scottish people that are now seeing how dangerous these people are.
Yeah, they are dangerous. They're sociopaths. They're privileged, privately educated, pinstripe suited psychopaths. I mean, I've said before that Eton and Harrow and all these private schools, they produce more al-Baghdadis than any of these radical madrasas in Pakistan, more extremists. You know, Tony Blair, you know, out of fetis, you know, 1 million people dead in Iraq, the region totally torn apart. And there's been blowback in terms of terrorist attacks in Europe, including the streets of the UK. So, you know, these people have got a lot to answer for, but they're never held accountable, are they? Well, Boris Johnson, 150,000 COVID deaths and rising. And he's still ahead in the polls. This is in England. I think what we've seen, see, I used to believe once upon a time in an entity known as the British working class. I no longer do. Brexit's changed that. The working class, it's certainly in an economic sense, in large swathes of deindustrialised Britain, has turned inward into an ethno-nationalist rump. And at the head of this rump or a mob has been these old Etonians have cleverly situated themselves, and they're leading it on the road to ruin. And Brexit, as I said in my rant, is a reach back in time to a supposed golden age when Britannia ruled the waves and the Union Jack flew wherever it damn well pleased. And we need to get off this sinking ship, because this Tory government is entwined in a tight embrace with the 19th century. And we need to move forward. And my vision of Scotland, my reimagining of Scotland is as a modern democratic republic. I don't want the monarchy as head of state. I think that's part and parcel of the problem. I want a different kind of economy, and I certainly don't want an independent Scotland to become a junior partner to the American empire. We need to strike out for something completely different. And there are people within the independence movement, within the mainstream, who do aspire to that status for an independent Scotland. You know, we want to be a peace-loving nation. We want to be welcoming. We want to set our independence movement up on the basis of diversity and inclusiveness to set us apart from this ethno-nationalist shit show, otherwise known as Brexit.
Well, Brexit, talking about Brexit, that leads me on nicely to this man. I don't know if you can see on the screen share here. We've mocked a wee Doug Mike Oxmells for Moray, or wee Doug Union Minion for Moray, as we call him here at the show. It just can't seem to do anything right for doing something wrong.
Well, he's out of touch, yeah. He's completely out of touch with the mood. His politics are out of touch. I mean, Scotland is a collectivist society, and he's coming on with Thatcherite ideas. I mean, obviously, small parts of Scotland still vote for this, you know, in Morayshire and the Borders, etc., Tory areas of Scotland, but they're marginal in the extreme. And you know, the old saw that why should we be laboured with Tory governments we never vote for and suffer their policies? I mean, that's undeniable. That's been going back decades now since Thatcher came to power. You know, in 1979, I just left school the very year she came to power. Actually, my first job was a Yops. The first thing I did, like most of my classmates when I left school, was go straight to the dole office. Then I was lucky to get a job, and I don't know how old you are. I'm in my early 50s. It was Youth Opportunities Programme. It's one of these schemes.
I'm mid-40s, John, so I'm not that far behind, mate. I'm not catching up. I mean, I'm not catching up. I'm far behind.
But yeah, I mean, that was a world. That's a world I emerged from school into. You know, this is what your expectations were low. You know, any job was a good job, and you just took it. You just took it.
Well, it's pretty much same side as well, mate. It was like you kind of and I was brought up the same ethos. It was a case of, right, well, you take whatever opportunity presents itself, really, take it. And if you work for your opportunities, different ones will present themselves. So it was like, that was the ethos which was put to me. I mean, another thing that we've got in common, I've seen on your videos, on your pages, you like to work around a bit of bag and things like that, you know.
I do.
I appreciate folk that kind of actually still try and do things. You know what I mean? It's not just in your teens and your 20s and your 30s. You know what I mean? If you can keep yourself moving and what have you, all more power to your elbow as far as I'm concerned. I mean, so I appreciate the fact that you do that.
Thank you.
A lot of my heroes and inspirations or people were always boxing. Well, boxing greats. You can't be called anything other than boxing greats, you know. The likes of Joe Lewis, Marciano, Gregory Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, you know, all these ones coming up through the generations, like the greats of it. You commented, I know that I'm jumping from legends to modern time, but I seen a comment the other day. It was after the Conor Benn fight against Vargas. My comment on that was that it was perfect, powerful and precise, and it sent a message to that division, in my opinion. His father was a wee bit like that. Do you see any his father in him?
Big time, yeah. Certainly the power. I think he's got better feet than his dad. I think he's a better boxer than his dad. I think he's going to be a true superstar. I do a boxing column for my sins, or in my conceit, if two tweets for the Morning Star newspaper, and a while back after his last fight against Frenello, I think it was, I said he's the most proved fighter in Britain. I think he's a star. I like his mentality. He's in it for the right reasons. He's improved unbelievably. You know, he's brilliant to watch. I mean, that was just an unbelievable statement he made with that performance. I mean, was it 82 seconds?
It was exciting.
Vargas is no mug.
No, and that's the thing. That's what was exciting for me about it. It was the fact that it's not just a bottom rung operator. I mean, the professionals will say this. There's levels to everything, you know. There's levels to boxing as well, and he was at the level that we're pushing to be a world champion, you know. And it's like,
especially the fact he's fighting in these surreal circumstances with no crowd and so on. Some fighters it's helped, some fighters it's hindered. Josh Warrington it's hindered. I think he relied on the crowd. Conor Benn, maybe it took the pressure off him, you know, but he certainly was clinical. I mean, I think Vargas was trying to have a look at him for the first round, so to download his information kind of thing, and he just didn't give him a chance.
I didn't give him a chance. Clinical, and sometimes that's what you need. You need to be that clinical. The phrase, you're not in there for the overtime, you know. It's,
no.
It's not.
And I think he's one who's benefited from his dad being a legend, because his hunger is driven by the need to outshine his dad and prove that he's not just getting these opportunities because of his dad, and he's not pampered and so on. And I think he's doing that. I think he's really driven. You can tell. I mean, the interview after it was equally impressive. You know, he was just like a ball of fire. You know.
And right, we'll go back to the legends then. So, who's your all-time great of the boxing game, and why?
Well, there's two for two different reasons. Although you can't gainsay the role of Muhammad Ali, his societal role. You know, outside the ring, he made great statements. What he stood for, what he went through for his beliefs, his journey, what he meant to people. But in terms of pure boxing, my favourite is probably Sugar Ray Leonard. I think Sugar Ray Leonard was complete. I think he was excited to watch. He could mix it. I think he was in some of the great classic fights with his contemporaries, the likes of Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, you know, Marvin Hagler. So he's brilliant, eh? Tommy. Sugar Ray Leonard would be my favourite boxer.
Sugar Ray, that's a very good choice. Very good choice. This is Fury's travelling Gypsy Fist King here, John. Actually, I appreciate what you said about the Eejit. We call him the Eejit here at the studio, you know, the Eejit. Brilliant. I appreciate your thoughts in boxing. What about I'm a Gypsy traveller. What's your thoughts on Gypsy travellers? Not necessarily on Gypsy travellers, but they're quite good at the all boxing game, aren't they?
They're very adept at it, man.
Do you think they're tougher than that wee minion for more, that wee Douglas Ross? I'm going to
I think it'll be a close run thing, maybe half a second. You know, they're brilliant boxers, either it's in their blood. Joe Saunders, of course, Tyson Fury, long tradition. I think Douglas Ross would find it difficult to last half a second with any of those guys. I think politically as well, actually.
certainly with the great Muhammad Ali, when he lost a second with him politically anyway, he would have wiped the flavour of him. Right, anyway, John, I need to jump in back into the training in that game, mate. So if you can tell me what your favourite Scottish thing is.
Favourite Scottish thing, all right. Favourite Scottish thing is the humour. I think the Scottish humour, the down to earthness, especially working class. I spent some time living in Los Angeles, and you can imagine what it's like there for somebody like me for a housing scheme in Edinburgh. I was certainly a fish out of water, but it certainly helped to have that Scottish chip on the shoulder with all the nonsense that goes on over there. People sort of trying to be something they're not. I suppose I was trying to do that at that time as well, to be honest. But my Scottish upbringing stood me in good stead at various points.
Maybe it's not, John, and it's one of these things. I'm bad in Hairy Minion. The UCANny Scotland News and the Big Lion News. This is my airman phone at me. John, I'm going to go back to what you said about Boris, because you've said things about you've said things about Jacob Rees-Mogg, you've said things about that guy across the pond, Donald Trump. Who do you think will be the next one to receive? I mean, if you could say to Boris Johnson to his face, what would you actually say to his face? Sorry, that was what I was going to ask you.
I tell him that his brain's £3. I tell him that his brain's £3 lighter than a meringue, and that his conscience was leaving less. The way that he's led the country through COVID, or misled it actually, horrific, man. Part and parcel of the problem with British society and this Tory establishment that thinks it's born to rule, and it does, but it's born to misrule. If this man's guilty of criminal negligence on a grand scale, he should be in prison. He shouldn't be in Downing Street by now, but yet he's still ahead in the polls. What does that tell you about the opposition? There he is. There he is.
This is TweetStreet,
My word.
satirical
Goes on and does the chat in
broadcasting
between,
to
right?
you
So I'm kind of
from
stopping to go on the
occupied
questions on.
Scotland.
No, thanks for that, mate. We'll just talk and just stay on record as me and you, all right, buddy?
All right, mate.
Right, so well, that's it. We need the reason I'm doing this, John, just to explain in case you've no any of the previous podcasts. I know you're a busy man. I know you do your own podcast. I know you're a writer. You've got a book, The Boxing Game.
This boxing game,
Boxing Game, sorry. What other things have you done that I'm maybe not aware of, and what things have you got in the pipeline coming forward?
Well, I'm always writing every day in book projects. I'm writing a big book about what's going on geopolitically with the rise of Russia and China and this kind of sort of knocking America off its perches and the main unipolar hegemonic power. I've been writing that for, it seems like years. It's kind of a challenge, but I'm coming to the end of that. I do my boxing columns. I do opinion pieces for international news organisations. And I'm just kicking about, doing what I can. And obviously, I'm fairly active on Twitter. Aye. Twitter's like the people's media now. It's like our wall graffiti. It's very subversive. I was delighted to see the pushback with this establishment drivel that was unleashed in the wake of the death of Prince Philip. It just shows you what's wrong with this country, isn't it? They're really desperate, these bastards in Westminster and part of this autocratic ruling class, to try and kind of forge some national unity when the country's never been more disunited. It's never been more angry. It's never been more polarized across its regions, across its constituent nations. You're seeing the sort of slow drift back to conflict in the north of Ireland as we speak. This Brexit has been a disaster, and unwittingly and ironically, it's actually, rather than sort of free Britain from the clutches of Brussels and the EU, it's actually sped the breakup of Britain on the way. It's accelerated that process. And I'm excited because for me, the breakup of Britain is not just about the people of Scotland, although first and foremost it is. It's an internationalist cause, given the aggressive, brutal role this country, this state has played in the world and still plays. And Scotland's been corrupted by its participation in this horrific semi-feudal union. It really has been corrupted.
I totally second that, John. I mean, it's the old adage, fly with the crows, get shot with the crows, and sometimes you don't know what you're involved in until you're over your head, right? And that just sums up this government on the road with Northern Ireland. They don't know the hornet's nest that they've stirred up. And that,
well, I think I actually think they don't care. Because that wing of the Tory establishment has never accepted the Good Friday Agreement. They've always viewed it as being tantamount to surrender to the IRA. Now they've sent the SAS back over, so we're headed back to the future there. And I hope not. Maybe I'm being a bit premature, but it's certainly worrying, the level of violence sustained, because the contradiction there is never really. Brexit has only kind of revealed the contradiction. Partition is a contradiction. Mm-hmm. The partition, whether it's in Ireland, whether it's in India, whether it's in Palestine, is a bastard child of British colonialism, isn't it? And it's caused nothing but havoc in all these places.
That leads me nicely on to.
In Britain, we present the colonial project as being about teaching the natives table manners and double-entry bookkeeping. In India, the British manufactured a famine in the 1870s. Out of nothing. There were food surpluses, massive amounts of food. But the governor, Lord Lytton, insisted that this food be exported wholesale to Britain. The ensuing starvation killed at least 12 million people, possibly as much as 29 million people. All relief works were banned except for hard labour in labour camps, where the inmates received the same rations as the inmates of Buchenwald, and where there was a 94% death rate per year. This was all done in the name of liberal free market capitalism. Of course, the British did something similar in Ireland. In Kenya, soon after the Second World War, there was an uprising by the Kikuyu people who wanted their land back. The Kikuyu were herded into concentration camps and fortified villages, almost the entire population of over 1 million people. People were systematically tortured to death. They invented a new kind of pliers whose purpose was first to crush men's testicles and then to cut them off. They raped women with bayonets. They raped men. Similarly, a favoured technique was to ram sand up the rectum with a stick. Sometimes they were rolled up in barbed wire and kicked around the compound until they bled to death. Some of the British soldiers boasted about this. This is within living memory. The Colonial Secretary lied about it. The papers documenting it were burnt. The impact of the rich and powerful nations has been so phenomenally murderous and destructive that it has been completely airbrushed from our national consciousness. In order to justify the land-grabbing colonial projects, you had to create an ideology. We, the Europeans or the Americans, have come to rescue the rest of the world from its depravity and backwardness. But in order to do that, you have to be able to demonstrate that the rest of the world is depraved and backward. From this arose the racism that is still with us today. It was a necessary component of the colonial project. Some people might claim, well, okay, we broke a few eggs to make this omelette. It's as if all those human beings were eggs. But look at the omelette, isn't it fantastic? Look, we made this fantastic omelette. Forget about all that unpleasant stuff and let's just celebrate where we are. Where we are is a continuation of the project. We commodified people's land and people's labour and turned it into our property. We're also destroying the rest of the living world alongside it. We don't have to be like this. We are the same human beings as anybody else. We're all part of the same big human family. We just have to recognise that, accept that. And of course, within Western countries, there are plenty of brilliant people resisting colonisation, both internal colonisation within our own countries and external colonisation of other people's countries. These are the voices which must come to the fore, those who emphasise altruism and kindness and generosity and empathy for others, those who recognise that skin colour and any other difference of language, of religion, of background is completely irrelevant by comparison to what we share, which is our humanity.
UK abroad, right?
Aye.
Because we speak about it as Scotland, we want Scotland to be independent, the home nations to have their own nation. If we go further afield and you look at the impact that the bastard state is probably the best way to describe them, have on a worldwide field, with Saudi and Yemen, Israel and Palestine. You know, and it seems to be conflict. It seems to be their answer to things rather than discussion or cure.
Yeah, they've kind of tried to inculcate the belief that a warlike nation is a progressive nation, is a good nation. Its strength through militarism is real strength, but it's actually weakness. Because if the power of your idea is not enough to progress your country, then and it's all about the idea of your power, then I think you're heading on the road to ruin. And Britain, the UK is currently on the road to ruin, isn't it?
Indeed it is, John. But this is the thing. I'm Scotland's Bolton of the Canny Scotland News and the Big Lion News, working in conjunction with Baroness Area Minion. Like the Labour and Tories, way before 2014, the lead up to the referendum, and way for centuries before that, right? But we're colonial masters. We date Big Lion News International. What's your thoughts on how us media treat you guys up there in North Britain?
Not very well, obviously. The unionist media has obviously got a vested interest in trying to undermine support for Scottish independence, but it's singularly failed, largely because of social media, I would suggest. Social media has been subversive. It's been a great tool for us ordinary folk, or the small folk, as a recent campaign video I would put it. It's been great for us. We can talk to each other, we can have conversations, we can draw comfort for the fact that we're all thinking and feeling the same way. We don't feel marginalised because we're having these radical thoughts that we purport to govern ourselves. So I think social media has helped to offset the influence of unionist media, whose influence has never been less than now, because of social media, and because what they're trying to sell is an empty packet of crisps. There's no future for this union, and everybody knows it, especially in the midst of COVID. COVID has only, as I said before, accelerated the belief that Scotland should be a self-governing nation, because Nicola Sturgeon has done a far better job than Boris Johnson. At least she started from a position of empathy. He started with a position of the economy. That was his every word in action or inaction at the outset of COVID last year was taken with the economy, not public health in mind. And I think that just speaks to the machine men and the machine women who are Tories. It's a poisonous ideology. It's anti-human, anti-people, and anti-society. Right. So, Thatcher said once, there's no such thing as society. That wasn't a statement. In fact, that was a statement of intent. And by God, over the decades since, the Tories have done their best to make it come to pass.
I see that, John. Right. One more question. Obviously, there's a big election coming up on the 6th of May here in Scotland, and there has been a new runner added to the race, so to speak. What's your thoughts on that runner?
I'm quite agnostic about it. I do like Simi Salmon. He gave a great speech recently about, you know, the new world that have to emerge from COVID. It can't go back to the way things were. We have to rethink our relations with the animal kingdom, with the ecological system, and things have to be more sustainable. We have to address the social inequities in our society. Very progressive stuff. I do think there's been a few missteps. I thought that campaign video was a mistake. The Robert the Bruce, Angus McFadden, I didn't like that. That was kind of taking an ethno-nationalist turn. Said it was done tongue-in-cheek, but I didn't get it tongue-in-cheek. Right. So we'll have to see how it develops. It's a new party. I don't know. Are you convinced by the argument for a supermajority?
I'm still unconvinced. To be perfectly honest, I've always been of the opinion after the last time that my list vote is wasted in the area in which I was at the time voting for SNP2, and was always weird to have a Sunday second list vote. It's changed through the time. I just can't. I wouldn't vote an English party.
No,
I can't see the benefit. Although Patrick Harvey spoke well in the leaders' debate last night. In some instances, I thought the way he attacked Douglas Ross on his Traveller statements, I thought he'd done well to do that. But it's betwixt and between. What do I do? Where I've moved to, it's a similar situation from where I've moved from, where my list vote is wasted voting SNP. My thoughts on it, you know. So I guess I'm still to be convinced, John, is what I'm saying here. I can be bought. I'm not necessarily bought. I could be convinced one way or another. Something happening between now and then to make me go, no, it definitely needs to be this, you know. I'm keeping an eye on it. But
I think for me it'll be one of those ones where I'll decide when I get in the polling booth.
Aye.
My second vote will not go to the SNP. It will go to either the Greens or Albaha, and I'll make that decision when I go and I'll see how I feel. And obviously there's a bit of fair ground to run, and we'll see the campaign. We'll see what some of the ideas that Albaha come out. But it's just to say that obviously there's a lot of controversy surrounding Salmon for reasons well known. But that speech he gave on COVID and an independent Scotland must be part of this new world. I was very impressed by it.
I mean, like and when Alex Salmon speaks about Scotland and independence, you can't fail to be impressed by the passion that he puts, the passion which he seems to put into what he's across. Yeah. I'm aware of all the previous stuff that's for me it's done and dusted and get rehashed. It's only getting rehashed by people that can't stand. All right, we need to throw something in here. Done. Right, move on. Right. The man's been found innocent. There's been committees. There's been everything else. It's right. So we move on. He's now in politics. He's a big voice in politics.
Yeah.
I can see why Nicola Sturgeon and SNP people are worried. I can't understand why some of their actions on both sides to others. And again, social media's got a big part to play in that as well, John, which we spoke about.
Well, I think Nicola Sturgeon's been accused of being too managerial, not pushing hard enough for independence, certainly by some of the Albaha people. Salmons wants to do it in a hurry. I think that could be a mistake as well. I think Sturgeon obviously has been busy with COVID and other things, you know, the fallout for COVID, that's obviously taking precedence over everything. But she has set out a timetable. 2023, started 2023, the second quarter, the third quarter, I think, something like that. Anyway, 2023, she says, beginning of 2023, the first quarter, that's when she'll expect to sit down. The big issue is going to be how we deal with the attempt of the Tories to obstruct it in Westminster. They're not going to issue a Section 30, I don't think. The last one was far too close for comfort. 45% voted yes for independence. Consider that. Voting to jump into the known from a 307-year union at the time. That was a massive statement. And obviously you remember Cameron and Clegg and Miliband scurrying up to Scotland 2 weeks before. So this older Tonian establishment knows that the case for independence has been won, I think. The base level is over 50%. That's without a campaign. I think it's been won in the hearts and minds, and they know it. And they know it. So Salmon's going to be much more confrontational on that score. Sturgeon says, well, no, you can't stop it, you can't stop it. But I don't think these people will be persuaded by any emotional or ethical argument surrounding democracy. So we're going to have to have mass demonstrations, maybe going to have to campaign as civil disobedience. And that's where there has to be a grassroots movement ready to take that forward.
Again, I second that. I can't disagree with anything with what you've said there. If I could have wrote what I was going to say, very much based on
the key element in this round is going to be the Scottish working class. We're going to be in the vanguard because we got more to lose and more to gain than any other class.
Yep.
From independence.
Aye.
And so we're going to.
Politicians are only affected by the mess that they create is how certain working class people are seeing it now, and it's a case of like, well, no, you need to be vocal, you need to put your point across, you need to hold them to account. It's a need for. It's been a desire for a lot of people. It's a need now with this Brexit, with the internal market bill, with the Eejit in charge. It means that we've got to do it. Nicola Sturgeon said on the Leaders' Debate last night when Willie Rennie asked her about I can't remember what it was now, but she's about Brett, about rejoining the EU. That was what it was, about rejoining the EU. And it says, you can convince him. And she says, I'm not going to convince him. So does that mean that she's not got to be able to convince him for Section 30? Does that mean we're going to UDI? So all these questions that get thrown up as a result, well, wait a minute, if you're not got to convince him for that, but you still think you've got to convince him for the Section 30, it's a reasonable question. So Scottish people are certainly asking, well, what's the Section 30 all about then, if you're not going to convince them for that? And I think that's a right thing to be asking for before an election, because for me, like you say, I don't think she's pushed hard enough. I don't think she's a wee bit frightened, possibly not necessarily frightened, but uncertain.
I think she's trying to manage expectations, and I think part of it, and I think as a result, a lot of people are getting frustrated.
Aye.
Because it's never been more. Independence is now no longer a desire; it's a necessity.
Aye.
It's a necessity for us first and foremost. It's a necessity for the rest of the world that suffered the iron heel of British colonialism and Britain's role as a junior partner to this American empire, and that's why there's such international interest in Scottish independence. I remember I did a thing for Russian media the day after the last referendum in 2014 at the Scottish Parliament, and the entire international media was arrayed because this was a seismic moment because of Britain's role in the world, its historical role, and so on. And Boris Johnson will not want to be the Prime Minister who goes down in history as the one who lost Scotland. No. And because they won't just lose Scotland, they'll lose the UK's standing in the world.
Well, that's it.
I always say you've got to think about Trident. Trident's the means by which Britain has been a permanent member of the UN Security Council, nuclear power. And by the way, on this bullshit about maybe renting out Trident to the rest of the UK if we become independent, and they can keep Trident, but we receive money for them. No way. No way. We've got to get rid of that shit.
I don't agree with it, John. I'm Burns not bombs myself. Know what I mean? They're on our doorstep. I don't agree with it in the world. I don't agree with it on our doorstep.
No.
So why is it on our doorstep and no anywhere else?
Well, I mean, it's no accident that Johnson's just came out a few weeks ago saying that they're going to increase Britain's nuclear arsenal. It's no accident that they're relocating some government offices to Edinburgh. No. Government departments to Edinburgh. It's no accident that he wants the Union Jack or the Union flag flown from every government building. They're really trying to play the Patriot game now. And when the flag waving starts, the thinking stops. And when the thinking stops, the road to ruin is set. And that flag, that butcher's apron, is to me as offensive as a Confederate flag was.
Well, see, that's the thing. We can all wave flags, Sean. It's like you can all get a flag and wave a flag about.
But not all flags are equal.
Exactly. Not all flags are equal. Right, and on that note, on the flag waving note, that's the end of the podcast. So
brilliant, mate.
I'm saying thanks very much, Sean, for taking part.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Aye, thanks. Once I've done the edit, I'll send the edit to you your approval before I do the broadcast. All right. If there's anything you're no liking it, let me know, and I'll do it. All right, buddy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks
Take
very
care.
much, Sean, and all the best, buddy. Yeah, take care.
Cheers, mate. Cheers, pal. Thank you.
Bye.
This is Tweet Street, satirical saltire, broadcasting to you from occupied Scotland.
You're Sean T. I'm Sean. And Sean. And I'm Sean. And Sean. And Mommy Julie. Whoever's watching, whoever's watching, have a good time watching us. Have a good time watching us. And laugh when you are laughing.